When I tell you I should have at least 3 kids by now, girl, I should have at least 3 kids because I'm a gremlin. However, I've been saved because this IUD does not miss, girl. Yeah, this IUD, it does not miss. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Focus, 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 focus. Fuck it all, just focus.
Hey girl, I hope you're doing so good. And if you found this video, it's because you are considering the IUD. Either you're considering it, maybe you have it, girl, maybe you're scared of it. I don't know. But I'm here to tell you that not all experiences are shared, honey bun. And I, as an IUD mommy, advocate for the IUD because I really believe it's one of the best forms of birth control out there. And I think more of my girls need to speak up about their good experiences because, girl, you can go on the internet, you can go on TikTok, you can go everywhere, okay, and see the horror stories. And it scares a lot of the girls away from the IUD, which, I understand, girl. We hear all types of stuff about different forms of birth control that make us worried or nervous. So I wanted to make this video and share my IUD experience with you guys. I also made this on TikTok. So if you want to watch over there as well, I'll link it in the description. But I wanted to do a long form version, a more detailed version for you guys. So I hope that you find some good information, a little bit of a laughy laugh, girl, but overall, it gives you some game perspective on this form of birth control to help you decide if it is right for you. And let me start by saying this, girl, I am not a medical professional, girl. I am not a medical professional, girl. I'm just an IUD mommy looking to share her experience with you based on what I've been through and what I've learned about IUDs over this course of time having one, okay? And my biggest piece of advice, if you don't take anything else from this video, is to talk to your doctor because everyone's experience is different, okay? You cannot take the next girl's account for gospel, okay? Because everybody's body is different and how the IUD may affect your body will solely be based on you and your body. So talk to your doctor, not Reddit, not TikTok, not YouTube. Okay, let's start with the basics, Bookie Butt. For the girls in the back who do not know what an IUD is, it is short for intrauterine device, okay? It is a form of birth control that is implanted in the uterus, okay? And I want to be clear that this is just birth control. This does not prevent STDs or STIs. Now, there are two forms of the IUD. There's the hormonal IUD, which you may have heard referred to as Mirena, Kylena, Skyla. There's also Lolita. Yeah, all of those names, those are hormonal IUD brands. There's also a non-hormonal IUD, also known as the copper IUD or Paragard. I am currently on my second Mirena IUD, the hormonal IUD. I got my first one in 2017 and I was 19 years old. I got my second one in 2022. So overall, I've had an IUD for almost a decade, and it is really, really important to understand the differences between the hormonal IUD and the non-hormonal IUD because, girl, they are not made the same, sister. Like, they really are not, honey. And the impacts that it'll have on your body definitely varies between the two. So it's really important to understand what those differences are, okay? So let's cover them really quick. All right, so boom, quick hairs about the hormonal IUD, girl. Hormonal IUDs release a localized hormone, okay, girl? Localized meaning it only releases into the uterus. It's not getting released throughout your entire body, okay? And this hormone is a synthetic version of progesterone called progesterone, okay? And that's basically the hormone that dictates, how your uterine lining is built up and the shedding and things like that. So the way that the hormonal IUD prevents pregnancy is by thinning your uterine lining. So this is why hormonal IUDs are used most often for women who have heavy periods and really painful periods because it helps lighten them up by a lot. Also, this hormone thickens cervical mucus, and this is what actually helps prevent pregnancy, okay? Because the little swimmers can't survive when it's too thick up in there, girl. And I know that sounds funny, but it's the truth, Miss Mommy. Thick cervical mucus leads to an environment in which, those swimmers can't really swim as good. They're not going to reach the egg, girl. And then if your uterine lining is thin, it's hardest to implant. So that is how hormonal IUDs prevent pregnancy. And I really want to drive this home for the girlies who are worried about hormones. these hormones are not raging throughout your body, right? Can you still have like effects? I have heard some girls talk about acne, talk about bloating, talk about puffiness or mood changes. These are all things that vary from person to person. However, the impact of an IUD, as far as hormones are concerned, is going to be or should be really significantly less than if you had something with a hormone that surged your whole body because it's not localized, right? Something like Nexplanon or Depo or the pill, okay? Those are more likely to have more severe impacts. So you don't really hear girls with hormonal IUDs suffering as much with things like weight gain or things like acne or mood changes that are really severe. It's a lot less common than you would think. Now, I'm specifically speaking about the hormonal IUD because it is different if you get the non-hormonal. Now, when it comes to efficacy, the hormonal IUD is over 99% effective and has a lower failure rate than the non-hormonal IUD. And this is basically because of those hormones, okay? This is because it prevents pregnancy in a different way than the non-hormonal IUD, okay? And because of the hormones, though, it does not last as long as the non-hormonal IUD. Hormonal IUDs last only up to maybe 7 or 8 years, okay? They don't last like as long as the non-hormonal, which can be up to 10 or 11 years. Now, the copper IUD, aka Paragard, or as I like to call it, the big copper stopper girl, prevents pregnancy in a very different way than the hormonal IUD. That copper, which is wrapped on the IUD, creates an environment in the uterus in which sperm can't survive, girl. Simply put, the swimmers are not going to make it because of the copper, and that's how it prevents pregnancy. And because copper IUDs do not release any hormones, okay, there's a possibility that it won't impact your cycle. It won't impact how heavy it is, how painful it is, but it most certainly will not make it lighter. It should not make it lighter, actually, at all. However, a common side effect, especially within the first 6 to 12 months, is that it can make periods heavier and more painful. And the reason for this isn't because it's not working properly, okay? It's because your body has to regulate and has to adjust to having it in. And that's a normal thing with any birth control that you use. You should expect your body to have to regulate. The regulation is different with the copper IUD though because there are no hormones, okay? There's nothing like getting added to the mix to balance things out or to lessen things, okay? So a lot of the girls who have painful periods or have heavy cycles, copper IUD, if you have it before, the copper IUD most certainly, in my opinion, should not be your first choice. The hormonal IUD should be your first choice unless you feel like you can cope with the heavy, painful periods and unless you're willing to go through that 6 to 12-month period in which your period can get heavier and a little bit more painful. Now, in terms of efficacy, the copper IUD is just as effective. It's over 99% effective, okay? It does have a little bit of a higher failure rate. So when you see the girls talking about, I got pregnant on my IUD, you can probably bet good money that they had a copper IUD, okay? However, pregnancy on the IUD, whether you get copper or hormonal, very, very rare. Pretty rare. It's not something that you should be concerned about. This form of birth control is very effective, like super effective. So the odds of you getting pregnant are very low. And if you do get pregnant, girl, something in the water ain't right. And because they're non-hormonal, copper IUDs can last significantly longer than hormonal IUDs. They can last up to 11 years. So if you want an option that does not have hormones and lasts longer and still has that same efficacy, then absolutely go with the copper IUD. But be aware that because there aren't hormones, your body will react a bit differently, okay? Especially when it comes to how heavy your cycle is. Okay, girl, now that we understand the technicals, baby, the differences between the hormonal IUD and the non-hormonal IUD, let's get into the big scaries first. I want to address the biggest misconceptions and myths first, and then I'll share my experience with you, okay? So the biggest myth out there about the IUD is that it can lead to infertility. This is a myth. Do not let this deter you from getting an IUD, okay? The IUD is not going to prevent you from getting pregnant after you take it out. The only thing is that when you take out your IUD, you can start trying to conceive right away. And there are a lot of women who like literally can conceive within the first 1 to 2 months. There are some women who take a little bit longer for their body to regulate because your hormones have to come flooding back in. However, it does not lead to infertility, babe. It does not lead to you being barren or not ever being able to have children. Does not do that. So please do not feed into that myth, okay? Now, the second thing that I've seen, the big scary, is about the insertion. And I'll be honest, getting an IUD inserted or even removed can be painful. Yes. And that pain level varies from woman to woman. It is about your pain tolerance. It is about your anatomy, okay? The pain you experience, though, when you get an IUD inserted is like period cramps. Now, there are ways to minimize pain with insertion. You can take over-the-counter medication before, like ibuprofen, okay? Or you can get medicine at the doctor's office from the doctor before, okay? Some girls even get knocked out for their IUD insertion. Girl, whatever you need. I don't want you to be so afraid of this short-term, pain when it comes to getting this inserted, because over the long run, this is a very effective form of birth control that lasts a long time. The procedure for insertion and even removal is even less time, but this insertion procedure overall is like 15 minutes. And the time that it takes to actually put it in, babe, 5 minutes max. It doesn't even take that long. It does not take that long. And baby, if you want to know how it's inserted, I'm not going to explain it because, like I said, I'm not a medical professional. But if you want to know how it's inserted, YouTube University, girl. My insertion experience, if I'm going to be honest, when I got my first IUD put in, it did hurt. I don't remember how much it hurt because it was so long ago. It hurt though. It was uncomfortable. It did feel like cramping. When I got my second IUD, it didn't hurt as much. It really was a very quick, like, in and out. Like, I got my old IUD taken out and my new IUD put right in, like that, like back to back. So for me, my insertion experience wasn't that bad. I will say the side effects started almost immediately. So the biggest one that I experienced was, besides another one, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but the biggest like immediate impact that I saw with my first IUD was spotting. So the doctor told me that I could spot up to 6 months, and I did indeed spot for 6 months. And it was really weird. It was like clockwork. Like once that day after 6 months came, it's like my spotting stopped. But I did spot for 6 months. Some girls can spot for up to 12 months. And this is with the hormonal IUD. The non-hormonal IUD may be different, and most likely really is a little bit different, because some girls, like I said, they don't spot. There's no changes. Other girls, there are. The hormonal IUD, you should expect it to change your cycle, and you should expect to spot if you get it. Now, you shouldn't be spotting forever, girl. If you've been spotting for longer than 6 months or upwards of a year, talk to your doctor and advocate for yourself, just in case something in the water ain't right. After those 6 months of spotting, though, I had regular periods, but I had significantly lighter periods. Like, coming from a girl who had really severe, heavy, painful periods, like I had to stay in bed, stay home from school because of my cycle, getting an IUD was like absolutely life-changing for me, because my periods before were probably upwards of 8 days heavy, very painful. My periods now, I no longer get period cramps, and I haven't had period cramps since I got my first IUD. And my flow is extremely light. Like, I can get away with a panty liner light, girl. And I'm not a pad wearer. I prefer tampon, but if I do wear tampons, it's usually a light tampon, and I'm really very much so grateful for that, because girl, oh my gosh. When I tell you it was a wreck before, it was a murder scene before, but now it's like, a little light. It's a little light, and I really enjoy that. And my period lasts significantly less time. Like, my period now lasts 3 days. Like 3 days from start to finish. And I have no regrets about that. I'm having a time when it comes to that, girl. Now, with my second IUD, a side effect that I experienced almost immediately was a decrease in my libido, which I think I can attribute to the fresh flow of hormones from having my first IUD for 5 years and then getting a new one. It was kind of like a new dose, basically. And I noticed that I did have a decrease in my libido, which is like my desire to bump uglies and hunch, okay? I I didn't have too much of an issue with my first IUD, but that second one definitely took me out. And so that is a very common thing that they say for the girls like, "Hey, if you have an IUD, go pick up some lube. You might need it." And there's nothing wrong with that. I opted for natural supplements to help with my desire and help with lubrication and things like that. So I like to take maca. I like to take slippery elm. I like to make sure that I'm eating fruit. I know I'm just a girl, so my water intake should be better, but that's another thing. So getting your diet a little bit more inclusive to healthiness down there is really important as well if you have an IUD, because it does throw off your desire. Any type of birth control will throw off your desire, most likely because your body's not trying to get pregnant. So why would it want to hunch, right? However, of course, we're still out here wanting to do the dirty nasty. That's why we got this birth control. So, there are things you can do to remedy that particular side effect. Now, when it comes to side effects, those are the only two things that have impacted me: the spotting early on and the decrease in my libido. I've had a relatively smooth experience with my hormonal IUD. I've seen some girls speak on having mood changes, acne, puffiness, bloating. Those are not things that I have experienced. I do have acne prone skin, and I've had acne prone skin since I was a teenager and well into my adulthood. I can't attribute that to my IUD. I can't attribute clearing my acne to my IUD. I can really only owe it to better eating habits, healthier lifestyle, and a better skincare routine, girl. So for me personally, I did not experience that. And when it comes to mood changes, because I've seen some post about, when you get the IUD, you have more anxiety and you have this and the third. With the copper IUD, I will say the likelihood that you have things like increased anxiety are higher because it impacts your cycle in the way that it makes it a little bit heavier, which means you are more likely to have PMS symptoms, and anxiety is one of them. I don't think some of the girls put two and two together when they talk about the mood changes with the IUD, specifically the copper IUD, and how getting a heavier, more painful period also leads to more severe PMS. So again, things like anxiety, irritability, or even depression can be impacted and, kind of exasperated if you have a copper IUD. The hormonal IUD, can these things impact you as well? Yes, 1000%. But because of the nature of them, the copper IUD, it's more likely to happen. If there's one thing I wish someone would have told me though about the IUD, is that when you're bumping uglies, the person you're with can feel it. They can feel it. And depending on how long your strings are, you can reach up there and feel it too. But if you are in the act, you may poke him. Like you may poke your partner. And I have had a couple of ouch, you poked me moments. And the remedy to that has just been switch positions, girl. Just switch positions, shift the angle a little bit, switch up that, the position you're in. I would say probably without being too vulgar, the position that I think I've experienced this most in was probably when he was behind me. I'm pretty sure. But then again, it may vary based on your anatomy, girl. So just switch up that position, but be cognizant that your partner can feel your IUD. And another thing I need the girls to know is that this is something implanted within your body. So if something happens that significantly shifts your body, like say a car accident, for example, your IUD can be like displaced and it can become impacted in your uterine wall. That has happened plenty of times, okay? You still have to be very careful when you have something inside of your body like this with, your type of movements. If you're dealing with somebody and he just jumping on top of you and ramming that thing, be cognizant that it could impact the placement of your IUD. And, you know, I mean, I don't know how better to put that, girl. And I know there are some girls that are really afraid of getting it impacted or it shifting or falling out. If it falls out, something in the water wasn't right in the first place. It was probably defective. If it shifts or get impacted, you absolutely need to go and see your doctor. So if you're having like unexplained bleeding or all of a sudden you're having a lot of pain, go and see your doctor and they can do like a little ultrasound and see where it's at and see what's going on. But I want to say though that those things, while they can happen, they're not likely, they're not common, but they can happen and it's something to be aware of. Overall, would I recommend the IUD? Yes, I would recommend the IUD. However, if you are so deathly afraid of side effects or what could happen, I would say do extensive research and first and foremost, above all else, talk to a doctor. Talk to a doctor, talk to a doctor, talk to a doctor, okay? You're not going to get the answers that you need for your body from the internet. You need to talk to a doctor if you're considering the IUD and if you have concerns about how it may impact you. And specifically, oh girl, my Alexa's talking. It's always best to consult with a medical professional when it comes to birth control. So if you are interested in the IUD and you need help deciding which one's going to work for you, how your body may respond, if you are a good candidate for this form of birth control, baby, talk to your doctor first. You're not going to get your answers from Reddit. You're not going to get your answers from YouTube University or Google, okay? Dr. Google does not beat an actual physician, somebody who can look at your body, look at your numbers, look at, your levels and say, okay, actually, maybe Nexplanon is a better option for you. Actually, let's try this before we try, Paragard or before we try a hormonal IUD. What should influence your decision in getting an IUD or even keeping an IUD should be based on what you and your doctor have deduced about your body and what is best for you, okay? And especially because getting an IUD taken out is not as simple as getting it put in. And a lot of the times it does require you to advocate a lot because, especially if you're getting it taken out early, they want justification. And they need justification. They actually have to provide, in some cases, justification to the actual provider of the IUD and why it's getting removed. So absolutely advocate for yourself at all times when it comes to your health, okay? If you don't think this is right for you, if you want it taken out, girl, do everything you need to, jump through every hoop that you have to take it out. Please don't take it out at home. We have a TikTok about that as well. I do not support that, and I'm never going to tell the girls to do that, okay? But advocate for yourself and work with your doctor. Please just work with your doctor. Girl, overall, I've had a time. I enjoy my IUD. I'm very happy that I've had it. It's giving me a lot of peace of mind that I don't have to worry about having an accident baby. I'm very, very big on family planning. I'm a big supporter of Planned Parenthood, both as an organization, but also as just a stance for your life and how we bring people into this world. It's really important for me when I have my kids that my kids are planned. I don't want to have any accidents. I don't want to have children that I'm not prepared for or that I didn't plan for, and I don't want to have children with somebody potentially that I don't want to be with or wouldn't be a good partner for me, even not romantically, but as a parent, right? And in a co-parenting situation, I've seen what that's done to people in my life, to other girls. I did not want that to happen to me. That's why I chose the IUD. Simply put, I chose the IUD because I didn't want to have an accident baby. I didn't want to bring someone into this world off of a whim. Okay, so if you're considering the IUD and this has been helpful for you, please consider subscribing. Please like this video. If you subscribe, go ahead and turn on the notification bell. If you have any questions for me, any commentary, share your experience with me in the comments. I would love to hear it. I love to engage with you guys. All my socials will be linked below. And yeah, I hope this is helpful for you.